Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's GP Strategies webinar. My name is Kayla Rotz, Marketing Manager for GP Strategies, and I am happy to be your host for today's event. If you've joined us before, we are very glad to have you back, and if this is your first session with us, well, a big welcome goes out to you. We have a great discussion planned today. Linda Lamper has joined us to talk about how SAP users are adopting technology in the new normal. Linda has worked for over 25 years in the field of human performance technology, helping clients improve the overall performance of their organizations and employees. In addition to a strong background in instructional systems design, she has over 20 years of experience designing and delivering solutions for companies implementing traditional ERP and cloud-based systems. Most recently, she's been focusing on people-related challenges associated with global process and system transformations, as well as integration of mobile and micro-learning strategies to streamline platform adoption. So with that, Linda, I will turn things over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Kaylin. Good morning, everyone, or if you're watching this later, good afternoon, good evening. Really excited to join you all today. And this is a topic that I've been spending a lot of time thinking about recently. Reading, attending some great recorded sessions from from thought leaders about this. What is going on with our world, and how does what we need to do need to evolve in order for us to continue to be successful? I was looking at some different sessions and really started spending a lot of time thinking about what are the factors that are influencing technology adoption these days. And, the very first thing, and a term that I heard from Carrie Brown, who's the VP of Workforce Adoption at SAP, is this idea that right now, adoption has to take place in a perfect storm. And, we think about what's going on. First of all, we've already been in a time of workforce transition, but it's just been exacerbated and accelerated by our current situation with COVID-19, with the economy and everything else. So, perhaps up to 30% change in our workforce is going on, in the process of going on right now. Secondly, of course, the impacts of COVID-19, and all of us know that this is happening. I'm sitting in my office today. It's the first time I've been here in weeks because I needed a quiet place to talk to you all. But we're all working mobily. It's not just the fact that we're working from home, it's how we're working together and what's going on with that. And that is also interwoven so much in the rapid technology change that's going around now. So we know it's more than just everybody's working together on Zoom. It's more than just schools are having to deliver distance learning. It's also things like introduction of technology that's going to keep workforces safe in the COVID-19 era. The little buzzers that are going to go off if you get closer than 6 feet to people, or the use of drones or other things to try and minimize people having to be in certain environments or locations. So all of this has combined to have this just perfect storm that's going to impact every single implementation of technology that we do. The other thing that I think is really interesting, and it's not so much related to the COVID-19 situation or even the economy right now, is that adoption is having to take place in this new experience economy, what they call the experience economy. And when anyone comes in and they're being asked to adopt new technology, they bring with them expectations that it is going to be personalized. Think about when, all of us are shopping online these days, and when we go in, things are promoted to us. They have suggestions about what we ought to buy and how we ought to buy it. Everything is personalized, and that all of our employees are going to be bringing that kind of expectation to our systems and technologies that are being implemented. And as we know, those of us who've worked in ERP for years and years, that idea that everything is going to be customized to you is not really a valid one, right? That's the ERP world. Now, yes, we can, update our desktops and stuff, look at the user interface, the look and feel, but we're not going to get that level of personalization that we have come to expect in our other technology interactions. And the second thing I'll say is that the employee experience is really critical. Their experience of this system and what it's doing for them is really critical. And I'll refer for a minute outside of our technology adoption world to just the fact that people these days are hyper-focused on employment conditions. And if you're like me and you look at Twitter on a regular basis or Instagram, the social media platforms, people have a bad experience and they share it immediately, whether that's something, related to a current event like Black Lives Matter, or whether that's related to their customer experience. So we know that however people experience this technology, they are not going to be shy to share that experience. And so we really need to make sure that we tailor things and address things in a way that can address that risk area. And then the third thing I'll mention is how we work has changed so dramatically in a very short period of time, and it's going to continue to change as we learn how to work in this new normal. And there's a wonderful quote here from Michael Leckie, who used to work as the CLO for digital transformation at General Electric, and he says, who we are now and who we have been is no longer enough. The problems are too complex and the problems are changing too quickly. You think about that. We are all in the process of having to reinvent ourselves almost simultaneously. And before, there's always been people who've been reinventing themselves. But now it's all of us all at once. And we see that in things like the number of people accessing cloud learning has just risen dramatically because we're having to reinvent ourselves, our jobs, and even our companies. And you think about a company like an automobile manufacturer that's now making respirators. That is a huge transformation. So the people that work there are having to reinvent their jobs, and to do that, they're having to reinvent themselves. So all of this means that any technology adoption effort that we're going to have to be doing is going to be really risky. The other thing, the second thing that's going on really is that company needs are evolving because of all of this. And, up in the upper left-hand corner, you see supervisors and managers being asked to step up to new roles. I start and I end with that because they really are the critical resources that we need to think about when we're thinking about technology adoption. But moving out for a second to a bigger picture, in the upper right-hand side, you see gig economy is transforming the relationships between the worker and employees. And you think about those last mile employees, those folks that show up with your dinner that you've ordered out. They don't work for the restaurant, they work somewhere else. That is blurring a lot of the lines between work and non-work and how this all happens. Similarly, there's going to be, and there has been already, a transition to more contract workers. And this idea of having a very flexible workforce. Those are the first people you hire in when you have needs, but they're also going to be the first people that you get rid of, right? And so how that happens, that flexibility of the workforce that's going to be going on now, means that onboarding is going to be an omnipresent problem. So it's not like the old days where you would have the first Monday of the month, maybe you'd run your new employee orientation and invest in those employees. Those employees may not be around for all that long. So how do you support that need? And then the third thing really that's happening is we have a risk for higher absenteeism. So you think about, you've got a shift of people that are working. If someone gets COVID, everybody has to go home and quarantine potentially. So who's going to step in and be able to do those jobs very quickly? How are you going to get those folks upskilled? How are you going to make sure that they're doing their job right? That is a very different need than the olden days where you would train everybody up and then support them and expect that they would relatively rapidly be able to adopt new technology. And as you can see in each one of those areas, supervisors and managers are going to have to step up and be in new roles and have a change in the way that they're working. So all of that really means that our learning strategies and our performance support strategies need to evolve. What we used to do, training in a classroom, et cetera, that needs to step up to the next level. And it's really critical, first of all, I think, to focus on how what you're doing, how your strategy supports your evolving mission, vision, and strategic objectives. And what we're saying here is, what are you trying to get out of this all? What is your company trying to get out of this all? and how is what you're doing supporting that? And taking that hard look is really, first of all, going to let us tailor our solutions to what's going to make the biggest impact for the company. And secondly, when we have issues, when we have crises, when we have budget issues, or there's some sort of impact on our business, it's going to let us make very smart choices about what to do and what not to do. Secondly, I think also important is this need to redefine the finish line. A lot of learning organizations look at things like certificates of completion of learning, right? Or, how did they do on the end assessment? What was the smile sheet rating? None of those things measure actual application of what is being learned to work and to performance outcomes. So we don't get that final business impact measurement. So if we think about redefining the finish line and really measuring completion by how well was what people learned applied to work and did it have the business impact we want, that's going to be a big difference and benefit for us in the long run. And I'll talk a little bit more about how we redefine that finish line in a bit. Next, the elements in the solution, the toolkit that we're using need to evolve. And we're working with a lot of companies right now where they had planned to do instructor-led training to support their go live in May or June or July. That is obviously not going to work. And you need to have different ways of this broader toolkit, different ways of teaching and different ways of supporting people to support the needs of your current employees as well as that contract employee or the in and out folks or the people that you're going to have to be continuously onboarding. And then finally, it's really critical these days, even more so than before, to make sure that your learning and help content is continuously available and accurate. A lot of times folks do documentation and training for a go live, and then it sits, I'll say, on a shelf, but probably on a SharePoint site somewhere, and does not get updated. And so the next time they do a big go live, they have to come in and either recreate it or update it. Well, now you're going to have people constantly accessing that learning and help content. And it's going to be critical that it be correct, or they're not going to be able to do their jobs. So as we've been thinking about what the new normal needs to look like in terms of technology adoption, we've come up with a model that's kind of 4 key elements that we think are really critical in these times. And I'm going to talk about each one of them for a few minutes, starting out with the first one, which is change messaging. Now, change messaging has always been important. It's part of a good OCM strategy. But particularly in these times, it's really critical to have it in a good format, and how you deliver it is critical. There's a great quote here from Jeff Scott, who's the CEO of ASOG, America's SAP User Group, and he says, if you're not communicating with your teams and colleagues more than you ever thought was humanly possible, you're probably not going to make it through. Communicating with authenticity, transparency, and regularity is the way leaders are getting through. Sending group emails to the entire team ain't cutting it anymore. Love that. Because how many of us, a lot of us rely on those group emails. But it's going to be critical moving forward that this change content be easily consumable. So I'm thinking, video probably, which can be made very reasonably these days, right? It has to be available at the time and need and when people are available. So they may not be working a regular 9-to-5 job. You've got to be able to get it to them when they need it. Very succinct and with a clear story. And really with one central place where people can go where they know they're going to get the information that they need. Because they have got so many things competing for their attention right now. It's just crazy. So what does that look like? We're thinking engaging video communication. It can be recorded on an iPhone. We do work with customers where that's what they use to record their video at home. And this idea of a clear story to communicate, why is this change critical? What does it mean to you? And potentially cascading that down or customizing it for a region or for a business unit. And then ongoing communication regarding updates so that people can see, what's coming, what's happening next, and they can feel like they understand and can control that aspect of the world when they have a lot of other things that they can't control. The second element of this solution is targeted online learning. And you'll see the word targeted. So why are we talking about targeted online learning rather than a regular, online set of courses that people might take or a learning journey that people might take before go live? We know these days that 80% of what people learn, they learn as they're doing their job tasks, wherever and whenever that might be. And so these days, we don't necessarily think, because so much of this learning is really happening on the job, we don't think that it's necessary to put people through all the rigors of an entire curriculum. Before we might send them and put them in classroom for 3 or 4 days, broken up maybe, but still. Nowadays, we're thinking, make this required learning really focus on critical information people need to know before they start learning on the job, right? And then as they're doing things, as they have their new business processes they're executing and the functionality, then give them that on-the-job learning in the flow of work. And so we think, what does this look like? Easily consumable chunks of e-learning, or you could have virtual classroom learning content that has that information people need to know before they start their next step of learning in the flow of work, okay? And that content should be building on what they've heard in the change messaging and then setting the stage for that learning in the flow of work. Okay? And I keep using this term, learning in the flow of work. So learning in the flow of work is you're doing your job and you find you need to do something, and how do I learn how to do that, or how do I do that? And the example that I always use is people who need to get a purchase order. So they need to either create a requisition or communicate with someone. They may not do that all the time. A lot of us don't do that all the time, but now suddenly I need to put in a requisition for my new headset for my work or whatever. So that learning in the flow of work, when I get to that point where I say, oh, I don't know how to do this, I don't know what the process is, that's when I pull up the learning chunk about requisitioning, okay? And that content has to be very easily accessible to me at the time and place of need. Okay, so on some kind of platform that people can easily access, it has to be in chunks that match the time, what I'm trying to do. So it results in content that's a lot more concise and maybe covering 1 or 2 tasks at a maximum instead of a set of tasks, okay? Because we don't want people who want to do this one thing in the middle and they have to go in and go through it all to find that. We want content to be really easy to find. And we think also that company-specific content is going to be critical to driving adoption, but then you can also curate off-the-shelf content and just frame it within that company-specific content. And that's going to help learners access it, make it accessible to them, and make it really help that learner experience, the experience economy that I talked to earlier to drive adoption. So typically what we're thinking these days we need is a blend of curated and custom just-in-time learning content in formats that support what a learner needs, all available in some kind of easy-to-access learning platform or portal. And what are we talking about here? Little micro-learning videos, step-by-step procedures and simulations. The need for those doesn't go away. Job aids, potentially, that outline critical concepts, the kind of thing that you used to put up on your board that shows the main steps in the process. Frequently asked questions are going to be really important as well to give that custom feel. And then curated off-the-shelf content, which is available in a lot of platforms. And then the last piece here is the idea of having empowered adoption advocates. And this is this idea of supporting the finish line of training. In the olden days, we might have called them super users or power users in some ways. These are the kinds of people we're talking about. And they're the ones who know that in order for people to really adopt and learn on the job, they're going to need support, not just performance support, but also people who are advocating for them to do things well, who are helping them access content maybe that they're having a challenge with, who are answering those weird specific questions that they have. And they also are somebody who can help us measure that new finish line of training. So be monitoring adoption, be identifying issues with adoption that are happening. They can play that kind of dual role of employee performance support and feedback on adoption issues. And so we feel like now more than ever, the roles of these people is really going to be critical. We need to identify them. We need to train them in each business unit that's being impacted, and then provide them the support they need, both with some kind of classroom training, virtual classroom training, so they can ask questions, and teach them how to use all that content, the just-in-time learning, as performance support for the roles that they're going to have to do. So those are the 4 pieces: change messaging, targeted online learning, learning in the flow of work, and empowered adoption advocates. And you can see there's a very strong change management issue sort of as a wrapper on the beginning and the end here. And that recognition that change management is even more important than ever is really important, because we are living in such a disrupted world right now. It's going to be important to have that extra support for folks that are trying to adopt change. So our challenge here is making sure as well that this solution is going to be supported and be able to be executed no matter what challenge we run down the road, the idea of ensuring the continuity of solution. So looking here at, this is the adult learning model that we've been using for many, many years here at GP Strategies, and it's used many other places as well. But the idea of preparing folks, so this comes to that first change thing, communicating clearly on reliable networks, making sure we have roles and responsibilities, because those may be changing, right, in our new work model, and that clear change story. And then making sure that folks have some way of asking questions and giving feedback as that change is being rolled out. It can't be one-way communication. In the tell me part of the model, so we've prepared them, now we're going to tell them what they need to know. So very important to focus information on accomplishment of job outcomes, which then drive business outcomes, right? Process and conceptual information is the most important driver of adoption, we find. So a lot of people put a lot of emphasis on documenting how a transaction is completed in the system, but if people don't have that bigger process information and don't have that broader understanding of roles and responsibilities, things like that, technology will not be adopted. And then make sure that you use formats that can be leveraged in various ways. So you're not tied directly to, for example, classroom learning and then trying to make it go online. And a lot of the tools that we see, like GPWise, they allow you to build content in that format, and then you can use it for classroom or you can use it online. Show me, next piece of it. So I've told them what they need to know. Then I'm going to do show me. And again, this is a lot of the learning in the flow of work stuff. So leveraging technology so that they can see how the task is performed is really important. Many people have been using, recording technology to create simulations and such for years, but it's even more important if you haven't done that to start doing that. And you may also want to do more exploration of things like a video recording or even demonstrations by super users. It's not hard to record what you're doing in the system and narrate it, and that could become a good performance support and learning in the flow of work item. And then, of course, always we've said with enterprise systems like SAP that you want to be able to have people practice in a safe space. So find technology options that let you do that. You may not have a sandbox, but perhaps you can still make sure that people have a way of practicing. And that might also include bringing in some non-technology options like remote or in-person over-the-shoulder coaching from your adoption advocates. And then finally, help me, the help part of it. And it's, as I said earlier, it's much more than just which key do I press? When do I do things? How do I make decisions related to this business process? What do I do when something goes wrong? Those are all things that are really critical for people to be able to find out. And the adoption advocates, again, can play a really critical role in this process. leveraging tools to support the new normal. So I've mentioned a number of times, and this is a theme, technology is going to be really important. And I know during development, we're at high risk that things are going to go down or that people are going to have to step out for days or weeks potentially. So using a tool like GPWise or the other tools that are on the marketplace to help during development is important. It'll let you do things consistently. It has automated tools to help with facilitating reviews and development workflow, and you're going to know where things are at. So if you do lose someone, you're going to be able to pick up the pieces. And then during learning delivery, tools can really help with enabling learning journeys, with delivering e-learning content, with supporting delivery by super users or adoption advocates, by just facilitating that whole delivery of learning at the time and place of need. Then, of course, the just-in-time availability of learning content. So context-sensitive help that you have in a lot of the tools is what's going to enable that learning in the flow of work. And finally, performance support, obviously the help, making sure people have access to help when they need it, no matter what crazy hours they're working, enabling the support, and empowering communities of practice and continuous improvement is also something that technology really helps with. So just want to wrap up with thinking about what should you be doing right now? First starting off on the left, you may already have a learning strategy, and really go in and take a look at how does that support our new normal? What updates might need to be made to it so that we can address some of the challenges that we're starting to see that I've talked about earlier? Secondly, operating processes, roles, responsibilities. Do I have risk areas there? Do all the team members have the skills and knowledge and technology and tools that they need to effectively do their roles? And I think at this point in the COVID crisis, a lot of us have shaken out some of these challenges. People who didn't have remote access or didn't have the right, technology to participate in meetings and things like that. We have a handle on that. So we're going to know the next time we ramp up a team what's really critical. I think that's important. Audit the team, audit the tools that you've got that they're going to be, you're going to be using for your technology adoption, and think about how are these tools supporting the new normal? Do we need to look at other tools? Do we need to adopt something else in order to manage the risks that we have these days? I would say look at that strategy that you've got for, super users, adoption advocates, power users, and make sure that those people are going to be fully equipped to support their role. Make sure also that you've defined what that role is so everyone has clarity on what it is. And then next, I think, preparing the team and making sure that people on your team have the means of working together and the skills they need to take advantage of those means. So if you're going to be adopting some kind of new technology, make sure that everybody who needs to get trained up on that can do that. And those things can be done remotely. They don't have to all be together in a classroom to do that. And then lastly, I would say take advantage of this moment. The things that you're learning, the things that you're feeling now, as you're having to adopt new technology, as you're struggling to work together, all of those things can be harnessed to try and really build that employee experience that we're looking for in terms of providing people with the skills, the knowledge, the motivation to adopt our new technology tools. In some ways, it's a gift. We've gone and looked so hard over these last few weeks about what our solutions look like and how we can continuously improve them. And I'm really excited for the next steps that we're all going to be taking together as we continuously improve how we bring new technology, new business processes, and new business outcomes to all of our companies. So thanks so much. I'm going to go to the last slide here, and I'm happy to answer any questions that folks have.
Yes, thank you, Linda, for that great presentation. I know we went a few minutes over, but we'll go ahead and take a couple of questions. If you have one, be sure to enter in the Q&A module at this time. Obviously, a lot of information was discussed, and there's still more information that Linda can share, so be sure to keep in touch with her. Her contact information is on this slide. And also, I wanted to remind you that the recording and slides from today will be sent to the email address that you provided. So I'll go ahead and jump into this first question. So Linda, what recommendations do you have for how we deal with equipping contract employees to support our businesses?
You know, those are folks who may be joining you for a short period of time, but the things that they're going to be doing are probably pretty critical to your business. And I think back, there was a pharmaceutical company we worked with years ago, and they were having horrible problems with use of a system. It happened to be SAP, and lots of issues for their help desk. And they went in and really looked at the information, and they found that all the problems could really be traced back to one temporary employee that they had hired in that they had never trained up, which is crazy. So I think important, make sure that you are very clear with the employees what their tasks are and what they're supposed to be doing and what those outcomes are. Provide them with very easy to access performance support content, and then make sure you're monitoring what they're doing and providing feedback on it. That idea of having an adoption advocate paying attention. But keep it lean and try and make it as targeted as you can to the specific steps that they're going to be doing.
Okay, so this next one's a broad one, but I'm interested to get your thoughts. So with this new normal, what do you see as being the biggest impact on the work that we're doing?
You know, the biggest thing that I'm seeing is how critical it is to leverage the technology backbone that you have in your learning solution in order to enable all of the things that you're doing. So if you have a tool, you know, when I keep talking about tools, there's a number of them out on the market, but tools like GPWise, like WhatFix, like there's a bunch of them that are built to create learning content, performance support content, and then support it. Those tools have all kinds of capabilities that can help us manage and navigate this new normal. So if your company doesn't have something like that already, it's probably a really good time to start thinking about that, just because it does help us manage risks in development and deployment and sustainment of learning and health solutions.
Well, it doesn't look like we have any more questions, so I'll go ahead and start wrapping things up. I want to say thank you again to today's speaker, Linda Lampert, and thanks to everyone who attended for your time and attention. We do hope that you will join us again for future webinars. Registration for these is available on our webinar page at gpstrategies.com. I wish everyone a productive rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.